The Chargers are bringing in more safety help with Tony Jefferson coming out of retirement to compete in the Chargers minicamp that starts next Tuesday, so keep an eye out for that. But there are going to be a lot of guys competing for jobs in that safety position, man. It just heated up a little bit with that battle because there are a lot of unproven guys that the Chargers have right now at that spot, like JT Woods, AJ Finley, Akeem Dent, the undrafted free agent. A lot of people are excited about him, but then Alohi Gilman, he's gotten out on his contract after this year. Derwin James is really like the only solidified player at that safety spot, and you need a couple guys at that position. Now, Tony Jefferson, he could come into minicamp and earn some playing time, so let me give you the full breakdown of Tony Jefferson. Now, the first thing that we need to know is that Tony Jefferson went to East Lake High School in Chula Vista, and he was a 4-star safety / running back prospect. He set the tone often with his hard-hitting ability and was able to make guys miss when he had the ball in his hands as a running back and also as a kick returner. Tony Jefferson is a hometown San Diego guy. He even played at Qualcomm Stadium in 2010 when his high school won the CIF section title, and he grew up watching guys like Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Antonio Gates, and he even went to the Chargers Park to see them practice. Just listen to this.
Coming here when I was younger to the facility, man, just being here is pretty cool, you know, seeing, like I said, guys like Gates and Rivers and stuff. You know, I was a little kid and they were, you know, doing their thing up here.
After high school, he committed to Oklahoma and played 3 seasons before declaring for the 2013 NFL Draft. He was ranked as the 5th best safety prospect in the class because of his versatility as a safety with some fluid movement to defend the pass and also his willingness to come downfield and tackle, and he was a hard freaking hitter, man. He was projected to go in day 2, but he actually fell because of his lack of size and speed, because he's only 5'11", over 200 pounds, and he also ran a 4.75 40-yard dash. Not really what a lot of teams wanted to see at the safety position at the time, even now, but he ended up going undrafted and signed with the Arizona Cardinals. And over there, he played 4 years until he signed with the Ravens in 2017 for a big 4-year, $34 million contract. And over there, he played alongside Eric Weddle, who is another San Diego guy. So he's got a lot of ties to San Diego here. That was probably his best year, honestly, in 2017 with the Ravens, because shortly after that, he would struggle with injuries as he tore his ACL in 2019, and then he bounced around on the practice squad of the 49ers and then the Ravens after that until he eventually signed with the Giants and then played the 2022 seasons with them until he ultimately landed on IR again in October with a foot injury. Prior to that ACL injury, he never really had like any serious injury concerns, and it was really kind of just a bad injury later in his career that derailed him these last few seasons. The Ravens, they have always had one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, and they're constantly just like rotating in new guys in the back end of that defense, and they all pretty much play very well because they're really well coached. So it's a very hyper competitive room and probably the hardest group in the NFL to make as a defensive back. So I don't place like all of the blame on him for not being able to stick around in Baltimore after that injury. It was really competitive, but we'll get into the negatives soon. So he retired after that 2022 season with the Giants, and he sat out this past year, and he said the year off was great. He was even scouting for the Ravens, but his body feels amazing, and he even was losing out on sleep because of how badly he wanted to get back out there and compete in the NFL. I mean, that sounds exactly like what Jim Harbaugh wants. In his last year playing with the Giants, he still showed some juice, man. I mean, there is legitimate reason to think that he can earn some playing time with the Chargers because he posted an elite defensive grade versus the Commanders last year and an elite coverage grade. He didn't allow any touchdowns last year either. He had 9 run stops, only 3 missed tackles. I mean, the missed tackle rate, it's not great at 11.5%, but it's certainly better than what the Chargers have right now in JT Woods. And even Akeem Dent, he struggles in that area at times. But over his career, his missed tackle rate is under 10%, which is not bad for a safety. Usually safeties, they miss a lot of tackles in the NFL. He is an extremely physical player that is always looking for the hard hit and trying to pry that ball out whenever he can. He always tries to make the big play. He's always like punching for that ball, whether it be trying to break up a pass or trying to force a fumble. just like he can punch you in the face, because he is also a boxer, and he even got the nickname Cobra because of how fast his hands are. He was undefeated in his boxing career. I mean, it only lasted until he was about 15, but he committed to football because even though his dad was an Olympic level boxer, his mom didn't want him to keep boxing. So he kept that same toughness and ferocity, brought it to the football field. Bad intentions, they work on the football field, man. Again, that's what Jim Harbaugh says. And Tony Jefferson, he's trying to punch that ball out with his Cobra hands. And in his career, he's graded elite in a bunch of different areas. He was an elite pass rusher over the course of the 2013 season. He was an elite run defender over the course of the 2016 season. So he's flashed in multiple different facets of his game at different points in his career. And I understand those are, that's a long time ago. 2013, 2016. 2016 is 8 years ago. Oh my God. But his biggest strengths are his run defense. And even though he's not like the fastest and the rangiest safety, he can cover the field faster than you think on tape. And when he makes contact with receivers, he's extremely physical. And like I said, and the Giants, they even played him at linebacker for a while. 131 of his 193 snaps with the Giants came in the box, and it was usually as a linebacker alongside Isaiah Simmons, who is another linebacker safety hybrid. So that's where this gets a little bit interesting. Could he compete as a possible weak side linebacker as well as a safety? He is 32 years old, never really a fast guy in the NFL, so you can imagine that speed is a little slower because he's lost a step at this age, but he is a tone setter, and he has been a solid, Adrian Phillips-like safety over his career. Think of him like the Ravens DB version of Adrian Phillips. I think a player like that, who is fresh off of a year of not playing in the NFL and suffering a whole year of that wear and tear on his body, he can find a role in this defense. And he could be the player to fill that Derwin James role when Derwin isn't on the field, or if you're on a 3rd and short, or even a 4th and goal, and you need to worry about the run game more than the pass, but the offense, they're bringing out a 3 wide receiver set. You don't want to match up a linebacker with a wide receiver. So you could just have both Derwin James and Tony Jefferson out there, and you can match up one of those guys on that wide receiver. See, in situations like that, the lack of speed, it doesn't really come into play because there's not really a bunch of distance that you need to make. So the biggest factor in those plays is the physicality. But at the same time, you don't want a linebacker who's not familiar with covering those quick receivers that are really good route runners. So that's why a safety / linebacker hybrid like Tony Jefferson can be really valuable in the NFL. And I was talking about it a while ago, but the Chargers, they don't really have a lot of proven talent in the back end of this defense. A lot of young guys, a lot of hungry guys with potential, but the 2 veteran safeties are Derwin James and Alohi Gilman, and the veteran cornerbacks are Christian Fulton and Asante Samuel Jr., who, both of those guys still have something to prove, and they're both proving themselves right now in OTAs, because reports are that they're both balling right now, specifically Asante Samuel Jr., but that's not a lot of experience in that room. This is a nice move for some veteran leadership who has been in a similar system, and if he makes this team, it's going to be for very low money. So this is a literal no risk at all for some potential reward here. I love this move. It's what they've been doing this entire offseason. And I also want you to keep in mind that the reward with Tony Jefferson, it might not just only include him playing well on the field for us. It could just be him having an impact in the film room with the other guys in the DB room, or helping them out in practice, showing them the ropes of how they should carry themselves in the NFL. Remember, he became a scout for the Ravens after he retired from the NFL in 2023. So he's a smart player as well as very physical. And if you didn't see my video talking about the safety position battle, you can click right here, because now it just heated up a little bit.